Good to go. All right. All right, guys. I'm going to go ahead and start. Thank you for being here. Probably the last demo of the day. My name is Jorge Rodriguez. I am a blockchain solutions architect for IBM, and I'm excited to be here. In particular, I'm excited to talk to you about the IBM Blockchain platform and the amazing work that IBM is doing to simplify and accelerate the formation of blockchain networks powered by Hyperledger Fabric. And so before I actually go to the demo, I wanted to talk a little bit about what is it, the IBM Blockchain platform. And so the IBM Blockchain platform really is a set of tools that allow you to build, operate, and govern blockchain network across heterogeneous environments. It gives you the ability to deploy and manage any Hyperledger Fabric component on the IBM Cloud as a SaaS offering, on any other cloud provider, such as Azure and AWS, and on any Kubernetes cluster on-premise. So we're not only giving you the capability to manage your Hyperledger Fabric components on the cloud of your choosing, but we're also letting you pick the Kubernetes infrastructure that you want to work with. So, basically, the IBM Blockchain platform is actually based on open technology, most importantly, Hyperledger Fabric. And the way that I like to think about this is, I like to think about it that the way that we do it is kind of like a Linux distro, right? We package the code, we make it easy to install, we make it easy to manage, and then once we have that, we provide support to you, right? So the support that, so the value that we provide in IBP really is based on the reducing the learning curve to deploy this network. It comes from accelerating and helping you with the workflows to be able to set up and manage this network and connect these components. And finally, it actually also the value comes from the support that we provide. So if you have problems in your production networks, you come to us, right? Because we have spent millions of dollars and we have actually invested resources in the community and in Hyperledger Fabric, right? So we have the skills in-house to be able to support your production workloads. So I'm actually going to go ahead and jump to the demo. 1 second here. All right. So this is the scenario that I'm going to go ahead and show today. I have already a network created. I have this network has 2 members, and what I'm going to show is how you can onboard a new member into one of our networks. And the reason I want to do that is because if you have ever worked on Hyperledger Fabric, you know how difficult that is. That is one of the most difficult things to do, right? So what you're seeing here, first of all, is the IBM Blockchain platform, and so this is our console. And the very first panel that you see is the nodes that are actually being managed by this console. So you can see your peers, you can see your certificate of authorities, you can see your ordering services. You can also see the channels that this particular console is actually connected to, what the peers are connected to. And in this case, we are looking at the console for the very first company that is part of this network, which is what we're calling Corporation 1. And this particular platform is actually deployed in our SaaS offering in the IBM Cloud. So you can see in our notes, you can see how they say how they're connected to the IBM Cloud peers. Now, continuing to what you can see in the console, like I said, you can see the channels. The other thing that you can see in our console and manage are the smart contracts that are installed on the peers that the console is managing, as well as the channels and the smart contracts that are instantiated in those channels. The other thing that you can see that you can manage also, so are the identities that are operating this network. We're not storing these keys into any kind of IBM vault or any kind of, in our infrastructure. These keys to operate the network are actually managed by you. The other thing that you can look and manage through the console are actually the organization, these MSP definitions that you have to create in Hyperledger Fabric in order to connect this network. And finally, you're also given the capability to manage the console itself. So now, let's look at the other company that is connected to this two-member network. The other company is actually have deployed their network in an OpenShift cluster on a public cloud. And here you can see also their nodes, the nodes. But obviously, the perspective from this particular view is the perspective from the other organization for the company, which we're calling Company 5. It would make more sense to call it Company 2. But it's Company 5, and from here you can see the nodes that they're managing, the certificate of authorities that they're using to generate their certificates, and also the ordering nodes that are part of this particular network. You can also see the channels that this organization is connected. This is a subset of channels that you saw from the very first corporation, but basically this in this case the channel that they're using, to connect in that particular network is this channel called the asset tracking channel. And so this particular, this is where they have their smart contract installed and instantiated, and this is where these two companies are transacting through. Now, there is a third company that want to be part of this network, and they have agreed that this company, which I'm going to call the Acme company, is actually connected to. So what I'm showing here, they, in preparation to join that network, they install the IBM Blockchian platform. They created a Fabric C8. They generated some identities using our console, and they also created an MSP definition for that, so that then they can share that with the other companies that are part of the network, so that they can onboard them into that network. Now, I'm not going to show that how you do that into this demo because I'm running low in time, but basically you can specify all the attributes to be able to create that MSP, and you can specify what is your Fabric CA that is going to be used as the root CA for that MSP, and to also generate the admin identity for that MSP. Now, Acme Corp, what they're going to do is that they're going to export that MSP definition that contains the endpoints, and it contains the root CAs, and it contains all the other information for that MSP definition, so that they can then share that with the other members of the network for them to be able to onboard it. So, but before that, they also have to create a peer. So I'm going to go ahead through the process of creating a peer. This company actually, deploy the IBM Blockchain platform in a Kubernetes cluster on-premise. So I'm going to go ahead and create that peer. I'm going to call it peer 1. I'm going to, we give you the capability to modify the configuration of your peers. In particular, we give you the capability to specify the certificates and the private keys that are going to represent the identity of this peer from an external source, right? But in this case, I'm actually going to use the Fabric CA that they have created to obtain all those identities and represent this peer. So I'm going to select CouchDB as my state database for my Fabric components. I had created previously an ID for this peer that is going to represent this peer. I'm going to provide a password. Make sure that is fine. All right, I'm going to specify the MSP that this peer is going to be associated with, which obviously is the Acme Corp MSP. And then since all this infrastructure, it's being deployed into Kubernetes, you get the option to actually modify the resources that are assigned to this peer. Now, why is that important, right? Because we give you the capability not only to be able to specify, we don't just deploy a peer and hide all that from you, right? In a true production environment, if you have a peer, most likely at some point you're going to reassign, as your network grows, you're going to have to add more resources to it, more CPU, more memory, so right? So we give you the capability to modify and specify all that information as your network grows. So I'm going to continue. I'm going to specify the identity that is going to be able to manage this peer. So this identity is going to have the capability to make modification to that peer, to install chain code, to do certain modifications. And then I'm going to go ahead and start the deployment process. So what is happening right now, this is going to the Kubernetes cluster that this is deployed. Again, this is deployed for this particular instance on premise. So this is going to the Kubernetes cluster and is creating the pod that for that particular peer that includes the peer and the CouchDB that it's underneath and all the other components that are deployed with that. Now, in the meantime, while that runs, actually, the corporation one is responsible now to onboard this member. They have the authority and the capability based on the governance network and the policies specified in Hyperledger Fabric to be able to add this member. And so the very first thing that they have to do is that they have to import the definition of the MSP that represent the Acme Corp. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I downloaded that before, so I'm going to import that. And so now what is happening is that Corporation 1 now have the identity, that have the MSP definition for that, for Acme Corp to be able to then add it into the ordering service consortium that needs to be done. So we give you the capability really to make all these modifications and all these governance changes that are required in Hyperledger Fabric. We don't hide any of that from you. So now I'm going to go ahead to the ordering service. I'm going to look at the existing members of the consortium, and I'm going to add an organization to my Hyperledger Fabric consortium. I'm going to add that from existing members because I already added it. Right? So now my ordering service is aware of this new MSP, of this new organization that it's part of this particular network, right? And so the next step for onboard this organization into our network is to be able to add them into the channel, into the Hyperledger Fabric channel that is going to, so that they can actually transact and share that ledger with the other two members of the network. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to take a look at the details of my channel. Again, this is from the point of view of Corporation 1 running in the SaaS version of IBP. And so I'm going to go ahead and change the settings. And so here is where you can manage a lot of the details of the channels, a lot of the configurations aspects of the channel itself. And you can then, now that I have added this MSP to the channel, actually it hasn't happened yet, I'm in the process of configuring that, I'm actually going to make that organization an operator, which means that they also will have access to being able to make changes to the configuration of that channel. Keep in mind that everything that we're doing here, this is all Hyperledger Fabric stuff. We're not putting anything that is particular IBM technology locking you in our specific platform. So I'm going to go ahead and specify the change policy for the channel. And I am finally going to specify who is transacting right now. So what is the identity that I want to use to submit this channel change transaction, right? So I'm doing that. I'm going to send that proposal. into the channel. And so what we expect to happen is that when this is completed, what is going to happen is that now the new organization, Acme Corp, is going to have the ability to be able to transact in that network once they're done with their setup. Now I'm going to go to Corp 5 to look at the channel information again. So now I'm in the second corporation that is part of this network. I'm going to look at our asset tracking channel, which is the channel that they are using to transact, and I want to look at the channel details, and you can see now that Acme Corp is actually part of that channel, and this is in a different instance of IBP running. Now, I'm going to go back to the Acme Corp because now we can see that the peer has been created. So now they have to actually join that peer to the channel so that we can start transacting. Now, they decided that they're not going to deploy an ordering network, an ordering node. So what they're going to do is that they're going to connect to the existing ordering service that is part of the network. And for that, we give you the capability to import an existing ordering service definition. And so that definition basically it has information on the ordering service about the TLS, the endpoint, how to connect to it, and just basic information. And so all this information, again, this is not proprietary of IBM. We're not locking you into it. This is information from Hyperledger Fabric. We're just packaging it into a JSON format, and you can then import it into the platform. And why is that important? Why I'm making a point about that? The reason I'm making a point about that is because as a company, you can actually use the IBM Blockchain platform, but you're going to be connecting to members of the network that are not using the IBM Blockchain platform. So we're not locking you in so that the whole network has to run the IBM Blockchain platform. Only you as a company, if you want to leverage the capabilities and the ease of use that the IBM Blockchain platform provides for you, you can decide that as a member of the network without having to get everybody in the network to agree to be part of this, right? So I'm going to go ahead, now that we have added the ordering service, I'm going to join the peer into the channel, and the channel name is the asset tracking channel. Right? I don't want it to make it an anchor peer right now. And so basically what we're doing right now is joining that channel to that peer to the channel. And so this console now will start being able to see details on that particular channel, and the information now is pretty much being transferred right to the peer, to this peer. And so we can see now the same information that we were able to see previously. We can see all the transactions of the channel, we can see the channel detail, we can see who is a member of it. So now Acme is a full member. They have been onboarded and they're now able to look at the transactions. But guess what? We still have to install the smart contract to be able to transact in this channel, right? And so for that, although I can do it through the console, I'm actually want to use the IBM blockchain platform VS Code extension. And so this is something that we really believe in. We really think that is important for developers, to make it easy for developers to develop, test, and deploy the smart contracts in an environment where they can leverage existing tools and ecosystems for the languages that they have. One of the really cool things in Hyperledger Fabric is that you can write the smart contracts either using the languages that your developers know, JavaScript, Java, Go not so much, but yeah, Go is one of those languages that we support too, right? So basically you can develop your smart contracts using all that, but how cool it is to be able to develop your smart contracts in an IDE that understands Hyperledger Fabric, understand that environment, but also have all these other tools from an ecosystem that already exists. So that's why we already chose VS Code to create our extension, right? So one of the things that you can do here is that you can create smart contract projects, And so you can decide whether you want private data collection support to make it easier to create a scaffolding that leverages private data, or you can create a default regular project. And so you can then choose the language that you're going to choose to develop your smart contract. And like I said, we support Java, JavaScript, TypeScript, which is a type of JavaScript, right, and then Go. And so whenever you do that, you're going to end up with a scaffolding of chain code that is going to be created for you. Why is this good? Because all the scaffolding already have connected unit tests to run locally on your project, so you can actually start using these tools and start running this, right? Because honestly, when it comes to speed of development and quality, that is what is important whenever we're developing these solutions, right? So I'm going to go back. The other thing, other than generating the scaffolding for your smart contract that we have, is that we can also deploy a local fabric environment for you. So we now can, instead of having your developers having to figure out how to deploy a local fabric network, we do all that for you. If your developers want to develop and deploy and test the smart contract locally, they can do so in there. Now, one really cool feature that was recently added is that you can also connect to an environment that you have in the cloud and to be able to install the smart contract and to be able to manage that. So I'm actually going to connect to the Acme Corp environment. So this is connecting to my environment that I have on-premise. It's connected there. I can see the nodes that are part of that. I can see my ordering service. I can see the CA. I can see the peer. I can see the channels that are part of that. And what I'm going to do right from here is that I'm going to install the smart contract in my peer. So I already have it prepackaged. So I'm going to go ahead and install it. And so once I have that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start calling transactions in those from that smart contract into my network. And so I'm going to go ahead and submit it right from here. I'm going to submit a new transaction. This is a very easy smart contract, very simple, that all it does is a key value pair. So I'm going to send it the value as a demo, the key, I'm sorry. And the value is going to be 300, right? So that's all that, it's the parameters of my smart contract. When I call the create asset, it's asking me if I want to pass any kind of transient data. I don't want to do that right now. And I'm going to go ahead and choose the default submission, which is going to use the service discovery to figure out where does it have to send the transaction. So I can see that my create asset transaction finished successfully. And now what I'm going to do is it's going to read that value back, right? And so I'm going to, but this time instead of saying default, I want to pick the peer that we created. I want to pick the peer that we created when we were doing the demo, which is this one that is here. And so I'm going to send the query to that particular peer. So we can see from here that we got the asset that is in the ledger and the value is 300. Now, if I go to my cloud, I can actually look at the details of my peer. And I can see that my HLF demo chain code has been installed at version 0.2. And if I look at my channel here, the list of channels, and I go to the block history, and I look at the latest transaction, I can see that the parameters of my call to the create asset was 300. So basically, we went through the life cycle of adding an organization to the network, right? Adding an organization to the network, and then enabling that organization to be able to transact into the network. Any questions?
The VS Code extension, does that work with Hyperledger Fabric network?
Correct. Yeah. So you can connect. You can connect to. It has obviously extra capabilities for IBP to make it easier to connect to IBP and grab some information there, but definitely connects to basic Hyperledger Fabric networks. Yes.
Another question.
Yeah.
So you showed configuring a peer, and once a peer is actually instantiated, can you dynamically change the resource configuration?
Correct. So for example, you could go to the peer right now, and you can say usage information. It gives you the details of that, and you can reallocate the resources on that, and then you can decide that you need to add additional CPU, additional memory, and this is really important, right? Because one of the things that the IBM Blockchain platform lets you do, this is created for production workloads, so you have to be able to scale, right? And you scale in a blockchain network. You scale in many different ways. One of the ways that you do is that if you have an additional transaction load, you have to add additional resources to a peer. So adding CPU, for example, it's one of those resources that we have seen that allows your peers to process more transactions. So you can add CPU and memory dynamically to be able to do that.
There's not an availability issue. You're guaranteeing that whatever the world state that peer needs to be associated with any endorsement is not lost.
So correct. It doesn't get lost, but here is how it works, right? Whenever you change the resources, that pod needs to be redeployed into your Kubernetes cluster. So that means that peer is going to go down. Now, for that, you obviously have to have a high availability configuration and fault tolerant configuration. So you cannot just rely on a single peer. You have to have multiple peers, 2, ideally 3, it's the configuration that you should have, so that when that peer goes down, then you can actually, when that peer goes down, the other peers take the transactions coming in, and then that peer will catch up to the ledger through regular Hyperledger Fabric mechanisms. Any other question? Something that I didn't mention here, but it's actually a very cool feature that we have also, is that, and again, it comes with that message of this is created for production workloads. We work with you to make it less complex, where we're definitely not making it in a way that you wouldn't be able to configure. But one of the things that we do is that as the new releases of Hyperledger Fabric are available, as patches are put out, right? Our certified images are actually scanned every day for vulnerabilities, and if we find something, we put out a patch right away, right? So one of the capabilities that we give you is to be able to update your images through your console or through the APIs, right? Everything that I'm doing right now in the console, it's available through a REST APIs, and we have mechanisms for you to be able to acquire an API key, so that then you can connect your existing DevOps tools or whatnot to be able to manage these components outside of the console, right? But going back to the update, here in particular, the console is telling you, hey, you have a patch to install for this particular component, go ahead and install it, and so then you can go ahead and install the upgrade, that particular component. Again, it will go through the same process. That component will go down, and so the other components will have to be able to catch up to handle the incoming load. But once that component goes back up, then it can start transacting. One thing that also, and it's related to updates, is that whenever you look at the channel configuration, if you go to the advanced configuration details, you can modify the configurations of that channel, such as how many messages are going to be in the block before it gets caught, how long do I wait if I have a message to be able to cut a block if I don't get any more messages, and so on and so forth. But one of the things that are also very, very important as we are deployed into production workloads is to be able to work with capabilities. Now, Hyperledger Fabric 2.0 is coming. They're going to come in with a new life cycle for managing chain code, just to put an example out there, right? And so one of the way the Hyperledger Fabric handles that is through capabilities. So the channel dictates what is the level, the highest level of capability that this channel is going to support. So for example, if I create a channel, I can create a channel with my highest level capability is 1.4, so that means that I can do private data collections, I can do stuff like that. So if I have a peer, for example, that is at level 1.0, it doesn't know how to handle private data collection and it tries to connect, it's not going to work, right? And so capabilities, it's the way that you ensure that only with everybody connected in the network to at a specific level, that you can actually move the capability of the channel so that it can start supporting the new features of the new releases, right? So all of that, we give you the ability to be able to manage, because in a production workload, you are going to have to be able to work with your other network members. You have to be able to collaborate and to decide when your network is going to be ready to move up. So you can move up your binary, but you don't have to move up in capability until everybody in the network moves up into the capability. And then through the permissions that are granted in a channel for the organizations that can do those kind of things, right, are managing the channel, then you can at that point move up the version of the channel. Any other questions? No? All right. Well, thank you.